Good morning. My name is Starla Leverett, and I'm General Counsel for the Alabama Real Estate Commission. And I want to welcome you to Briefly Legal. Today, we're going to be reviewing 2024 from a legal perspective. And I'm excited today to have two people with me from our legal team. I have Ms. Angie Kidd and Mr. Ricky Finney. Angie is the newest member of our legal team, so I'm just going to let her introduce herself and tell you a little bit about her.
So I got my real estate license in January of 2004, so 20 years of real estate experience, majority of that time as a broker, so some great brokerage experience. I was involved at the state and local level of my boards, my local board and my state board, before I moved to Alabama and joined your team here at the Real Estate Commission. I did a lot of work with professional standards and our statewide forms committee and a lot of legislative committee work that I think really prepared me to take kind of the next level and to help out on your team here at the Commission.
And Angie, I can't tell you how much we appreciate you. Having someone come in with that practitioner knowledge has just been a huge asset, because of course the rest of the team, we don't have that. We were never in the real estate industry. So you have just become invaluable and we appreciate it. And another person that's invaluable to our team for so many different reasons is Mr. Ricky Finney.
Good morning, everyone. Let me just say it's a pleasure to be here at the Real Estate Commission. I came to the Commission in 2016, and I have a background in law enforcement and military enforcement. So I'm just happy to be here and be a part of this team.
And we love having you on our team.
Well, thank you.
So as always with Briefly Legal, I want it to be as interactive as possible. So if you have any questions throughout, simply raise your hand icon and then unmute your mic and we'll mute it back and you can ask your question. So today's topic is just kind of wide open. So if you have any questions on anything regarding license law, please feel free just to throw it out there and ask it and we'll do our best to answer it. I want to start off our discussion about 2024 with just some statistics. Hey, Angie, how many complaints did the Commission receive in 2024?
406.
Goodness, we worked hard, didn't we?
We've been busy.
Yeah, okay. But in these complaints, they come from consumers, they come from other licensees, and they also come from internal investigations that we have, correct?
That's right. At the conclusion of our November agenda on the 21st, we will have presented approximately 175 total to the Commission this year, 107 of those being formal complaints.
So looking back at that 406 number, not every complaint turns into a formal complaint.
That's right. The majority of those were for checks that are returned unpaid.
My least favorite topic.
Yes.
So we have a violation, as you all know, that if you present a fine or a fee to the Commission and it comes back either unable to locate account or insufficient funds, it is a violation. And unfortunately, in every renewal year, we see an uptick in those coming in.
That's right.
So how many have we seen so far this year?
So far this year, approximately 100.
Goodness. Now, do we all 100 of those, do those people actually go in front of the commissioners, or how do we handle that?
They don't. Actually, the commissioners gave us a way to dispose of these particular cases with a consent decree that people sign, and then they can pay a fee and not have to come and appear at an actual hearing in front of the commissioners.
Okay, so they're basically pleading guilty in the consent decree, and then the fine is basically based on a schedule, and it depends on how long it took you to replace the money, correct?
That's right. The quicker they replace the money, the lesser the fine.
Good. And so we're able to expedite those much quicker doing that process, and if each individual had to go in front of the commissioners.
Yes.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions so far? All right. So other than the check cases we just talked about, what were some of the more prevalent violations in 2024?
Well, one thing that we've gotten are a lot of complaints resulting from audits and our auditors.
And one thing that I found interesting this year is that when you think of an audit case, you're thinking about money. You think, oh, there was an overage, there was a shortage, but something else kind of crept in this year from our audit investigations.
It did. RECADs and net sheets not being done at the right time or in the right manner, signed at the closing or after the closing, things not being really dated and done improperly that sort of defeats the purpose of that disclosure in the first place.
Absolutely. So just everyone knows this, but just make certain that those files, your compliance person going through them, that those recasts obviously need to be done as quickly as possible. And the estimated closing sheets definitely need to be done before closing. Otherwise, they just don't mean anything.
Yes.
Were there any cases that were kind of novel this year to the Commission?
Interestingly enough, we have had cases that we refer to as table funding, and we've seen quite a few of those.
Let me stop you there just for a second. Just
yes.
in case. What does exactly does table funding mean?
So interestingly, table funding is when you're getting paid at the closing from the attorney and not processing that check, that payment for your commission through the brokerage being signed by your broker.
Which is required in Alabama
Which
license
is
law.
required,
Is that
yes.
all commissions must come from the qualifying broker.
Mhm.
And so, interesting thing that, and I know you hail from Georgia originally.
Right.
An interesting thing about the cases, a lot of the table funding cases we had, were a lot of those qualifying brokers were actually reciprocal license from Georgia.
Yes.
And in Georgia, table funding is actually allowed.
Yeah, it's interesting because the law, it reads the same in both places. If you ask licensees on the state line, which where a lot of these occur, that you can only be paid by your broker, they would all say the same. We can only be paid by our broker. But the interpretation in Georgia is a little bit different. They are sending this a disbursement authorization form to the closing attorney, and so they think that it's fine in both places. But in Alabama, that definitely is a no-go for license law, that you cannot have any type of authorization to the attorney. That check has to be written and signed by your qualifying broker.
Absolutely. So just remember about that. If you have some friends that have reciprocal license, just might want to remind them, hey, okay in Georgia, definitely not okay in Alabama.
Right.
Any other type of cases where we saw an increase in volume this year?
One more that's really been the last month or two, I think, where we've seen the majority of them are failure to report arrests.
Yes. And as you know, and I think one of the reasons for this is, there's two different times when we look at any kind of criminal history. We look at it pre-license, before you're getting your license. If you have a felony or you've been arrested for a misdemeanor crime of moral turpitude, we have to have clearance with the commission for you to get a license. And but after you get that license, anything you're arrested for, if it's a misdemeanor DUI, domestic violence, those have to be reported. So I think that there's some confusion with licensees thinking, oh, it was just a misdemeanor, I don't have to report it.
That's correct. Mostly here recently, what we have gotten are reporting for DUI. And how it works, we obviously know in the licensee world, one person says, oh my goodness, I didn't realize this, and now I might have to come to a hearing, or I'm coming before the commissioners. And then in that region, we'll see that the word kind of gets out of, oh, did you guys realize you're supposed to report this? And suddenly we get several more in that are self-reporting, which is great. That's what we want to do. But
Yeah. And
if
just
everybody's aware.
As a reminder, it's 10 days after the arrest, and then you have to notify us, and then 10 days after the disposition of that arrest, whether it's pleading guilty, the case is dismissed, pleading no contest. Sorry about that.
Yeah, and certified mail too. That just helps to protect the licensee. The letter of license law requires that you report to us in certified mail, and that really just gives you that receipt to prove that you did report it within the appropriate time frame. So that's a requirement.
And speaking of crime, we're going to turn to our criminal expert over there, Mr. Ricky Finney. So Ricky, tell us what let me say this first. We're talking about things that take up the agendas throughout the year, and about a third of each agenda is dedicated to, like I said before, people who have a criminal history, but they want to get that license. They have to come in and get approved by the commission to do that. And so Ricky is our point person on this. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the termination of licensing eligibility is basically for applicants to have a criminal arrest or a criminal conviction. As license law dictates that these type cases would come before the real estate commissioners to grant approval for a license. So I encourage all of our listeners or watchers, if you're seeking a real estate license and you have a criminal conviction or arrest, call me and let's discuss it. Let's discuss what we can do to expedite your application and to get you approved before the real estate commissioners.
Absolutely. And I tell you, traveling around the state, I get that question asked a lot of me. Hey, I know this friend of mine, they want to get into the business, but so just, anyone that has convicted of a felony or a crime of moral turpitude, that's a misdemeanor. And that is a crazy word. It's a very legal word. And it simply means that it's a misdemeanor where fraud was an element, such as shoplifting, writing a bad check. Examples of it would not be a crime of moral turpitude is like a misdemeanor DUI, a misdemeanor domestic violence. Those would not have to go in front of the commission. So as everyone well knows, when you're seeking a license, you have to get fingerprinted, and then that comes back to our office. And then every morning, Ricky, what do you do?
I check those names that come to our office through the FBI database and our state agencies.
And in 2024, how many of those names did you have to check?
153.
Okay, so 153 people seeking licenses with us. came back that something popped up in their criminal history? And how many of those ended up actually going before the commission?
46.
Okay, that's kind of a big discrepancy. Why is that number lower than the number that you actually looked at?
The other applicants were able to clear themselves through court records.
Okay, so they could show either it was dismissed, or they got a pardon perhaps from that state, or maybe it was a misdemeanor that ended up not being a crime of moral turpitude.
And youthful offender status.
Youthful offender status, that's right.
Yes.
Okay, well, perfect. Any questions on any of that information? Okay, another thing that the legal team was involved in that I just want to touch on briefly is that we have a rules package that we presented to the commissioners, and they approved it. It's actually coming back for final approval in November, and that's going to be with a couple of amendments made to it. And that package, you can look at it on our website. I'm not going to go through them all because I'll probably be doing a Briefly Legal next year to talk about the rule changes, but you can find them all on our website. One I do want to just talk about, just because I know people with advertising, they kind of like to know where are we going with this, because people spend a lot of money on their cards, on their billboards, on their signs. The word prominent, which is what we use in advertising, which is we've learned is a bit of a subjective word, which is not good in the law. We are defining this in this rules package as basically the salesperson's name cannot appear larger than the brokerage name. So if my name, licensee Starla Leverett, is in 12-point font, then my brokerage name must be 12-point font or larger. So basically, we're just making sure that everyone understands that that brokerage name really needs to shine on your advertising. It's not just about the team name and or the individual licensee's name. So anyway, those should be coming February or March. And again, we will message out any changes in the law to keep you informed. Again, I'll probably do a Briefly Legal dedicated to those new rules. What we're looking forward to in 2025, obviously, is serving our licensee community because we enjoy doing that. And we are also, okay, someone have a question? All right. Oh, Aaron, you always have questions and I love it. Come on. What is it? Unmute.
Okay, I think this is working.
It is. I can hear you. How are you
Okay,
today?
I'm doing all right.
Good.
On the advertising one,
Yes.
the way it's worded, and this is where I just want to be clear, because the way you explained it just now, maybe I'm not. The brokerage name has to be the same or larger font than anything. Some companies have a lot larger names than others. So for instance, for sale, I guess my question is, can for sale be bigger? Like Keller Williams Vestavia, Keller Williams, that's a lot. It's hard to get that amount of words, some of these brokerages, than stuff like EXP.
Yes.
So
yes, it can be bigger.
My for sale would be like this big instead of the size of the sign. So are there exclusion words?
Yes, no, those can be bigger. We're focusing mostly on, and the way we're going to interpret is the salesperson's name, the team name, and the brokerage name. Anything that's drawing the attention of the consumer as to what you guys are doing, like coming soon, pending, for sale, the writers, things like that, those can be larger, absolutely.
Okay, so basically identification information, the brokerage has got to be just as big or larger. All the other words are fine.
Yes.
Excellent. And Mr. Finney, thank you for your service.
You're welcome.
And for yours, Mr. Sims, as well.
Thank you very much.
All right. Any other questions right now? Collins? You can unmute your mic.
Hey there, can you hear me?
I can, yes, sir. Go ahead.
Hey, good morning. I had a question about closing gifts. Is that okay to ask?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, got a closing tomorrow, and there's been a negotiation on a refrigerator of the house, and the buyers have agreed to purchase the refrigerator since it wasn't conveying. But I would like to purchase that either all or in part. Is there any problem with that as a closing gift?
So anything, and because the closing's tomorrow, there may be anything that you're buying, and you can absolutely buy from a refrigerator. You can, anything you want to do, it has to be done prior to closing, and all parties have to be notified. This includes the financial institution as well, in writing. So if you can get that done today, then you can buy them the refrigerator. The problem with it, if it's done after closing, and this is why we have this in the law, is that it could be considered commission splitting, like you were taking a portion of your commission and then sliding it over. I know that's not what you'd be doing, but that's how it can be perceived. So if it's done prior to closing, all parties are notified in writing, and then there's no problem at all.
Okay, you mentioned financial institution.
If they are getting a mortgage, then they would need to know as well. That's why you can add it maybe to the settlement papers as an addendum or something, just because you want to notify them of what you're doing financially, so you couldn't get in an issue where you're helping them with a down payment or anything like that, to avoid that.
Okay, all right, yeah, thank you for letting me know.
Okay, you're welcome, and congratulations on your closing.
Hey, we're just fortunate to be, moving forward and having business and clients and helping the general public, like you said.
Absolutely, and I know that 2025 is going to be a better year out there for the real estate industry, and we're looking forward to it. Yeah, absolutely. We are looking forward to it. We're looking forward to serving our licensees and the consumers in 2025. We are also going to be having legislation again, so very excited about that. And Aaron, okay, Mr. Sims, you have another question? Aaron, you have a question?
His question made me think of something. I know that we cannot give commission to anybody not licensed. However, apparently still there are lenders that think that my agents and probably any other agent can just sign something at the last minute and send $1,250 over to their buyers. Because I got in a fight with somebody last week about it. I'm like, no, that's not what we're doing. So, and obviously you don't have jurisdiction over lenders. So how do we, I mean, I sent him the law and he's like, I don't think that's how it's interpreted. And I'm like, are you serious? But how do we combat that? Like, I mean, obviously I told my agent, that's not what we're doing. We've got to do it a different way. But it's just something that it's come up periodically the last, couple of years that, these closing attorneys or lenders are just like, oh yeah, you can do this. And I'm trying to tell them we can't.
Well, I think that the best way we can combat it is having excellent qualifying brokers such as yourself stop it in its tracks. Unfortunately, like you said, I don't have jurisdiction over the people that are trying to do it. Or if people know that, unfortunately, if there is a salesperson who's cooperating with it and doesn't have a qualifying broker saying stop, then we would need to know about that, and we could look into it as a possible violation of license law. But it's just a difficult thing when they're in a different world than licensees. If it's a particular company that keeps doing it, you can reach out to me, of course, and then we can maybe contact that company and just like you did, explain, hey, this is a violation of license law. Please don't put these licensees in this position. So that's another thing we can do as well.
You can look for an email.
I know you sent me one. So anyway, like I was saying, 2025, super excited about it, and we're going to be having legislation again. So looking forward to that. Please let us know if you want to. It's going to be similar as the legislation that we proposed last year. But if you want us or need us to come speak at your association, at your brokerage to discuss the legislation again, we are more than happy to do that. That's one of my favorite parts of my job is getting out and mingling with licensees. So just let us know. Other than that, we look forward to seeing you next year at the next Briefly Legal. And as always, I just want to end reminding you how you can reach us. Our phone number is 334-242-5544. Our email is arec@arec.alabama.gov. Our website is arec.alabama.gov. We are very active on social media. We have an amazing CPR team that just puts a lot of information out there. You can find us on Facebook, X, Instagram, YouTube, which has a lot of great videos you can watch with some good information. And our social media handle for all social media sites is at AREC.Alabama.gov. Please, please, please remember, one of the things that came out of this last renewal cycle was we learned a lot of people don't know which email they have an account for us. So make sure you keep your email updated so that way you can log in and get things accomplished very easily. And when we send you an email, it is very important. So please open it and read it. And I think I may have one more question, and I don't want to leave anyone out. Tim?
Yes,
Okay.
okay, thanks. I actually have a two-part question. First off, is when a complaint is submitted, is there an acknowledgement that goes out that it was received by the commission?
And okay, I'll answer that part first. If we're doing everything as we should, and Angie usually handles these, I'm not saying that every now and then one will slip by, but we send an acknowledgement that it is received initially when we get that complaint. And Angie, that's done how quickly?
Typically within the same day. If we get into a holiday or we have a commission meeting and we're a little bit out of pocket or I'm not at my desk, but mostly last year when I tracked all of my numbers, it was in 24, 48 hours that you get an email back from me that says we've received your complaint.
And then after that, within probably about 2 weeks, you're going to get an email from the investigator that it was assigned to, if we've assigned it. And if we have not, and then they will contact you just so you have a contact person. And then if we decide that we're not moving forward, like let's say someone sent a complaint in and we realize immediately we don't have jurisdiction as landlord tenant, then Angie will also, Angie or one of the attorneys will send a letter back saying, we don't have jurisdiction, this is a landlord tenant, and this is who you need to talk to about the complaint.
Okay, because I know there's 3 ways you can basically file the complaint. You can do it anonymously. You can do it anonymously with reach out to me if you have additional things you would like, and or just put your name on it.
Correct.
And I was curious because there's some things I haven't heard back from for several months. So I was just curious.
Okay, I tell you what, right after this, we're gonna walk downstairs, call, ask for Angie, because she has the spreadsheet right in front of her, and she will talk to you about each one of those.
Awesome.
And
Thank you.
You had a second part of your question?
You actually kind of answered it.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, give
Thank
us about 15 minutes,
Okay.
and she'll
Thank
be
you.
at her desk. Okay, all right.
Okay.
Anything else from anyone else? Okay, on that note, I just want to tell you guys, have a great rest of the year, great holiday season, and we will see you back next year. Bye-bye.